Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm Dear Darling. I shall we see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today, where I'm recording an Animal Crossing episode before the D&D sessions I have today. With the session. And you might be like, why shouldn't you be like preparing or something? And the answer is, there's not much which is reasonable, in my opinion, to prepare. This session is like a downtime session, effectively. So the things which will happen in it will be, rather low key, and honestly most of it has to be quite improvisational anyway, because I don't necessarily know what they're doing. It doesn't necessarily tie into plot points. It's just more for rounding off loose ends. But anyway, hello there everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow at 6:37 p.m. on Monday, August 12th, 2024. So instead we're going to talk about Paradise Killer, if you can tell from today's title, because the last episode of Paradise Killer went up today. Honestly, Paradise Killer as a series, I'm pretty sure I haven't spoken about it. I should double check this. It has been finished for like a while. This was just sort of like, one, because I was like buying time because I didn't have time to record and draw the next thumbnail for the next series, and two, a little bit of curiosity to what the other endings quote were like. And spoiler alert, didn't really change all too much, like oh yeah, I guess I warn you before I do like mega spoilers and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll just be talking some open thoughts, some unrestricted, not unrestricted, but unorganized thoughts to do with Paradise Killer and my experience with the game. Sorry, not right now. I'm too busy sitting down talking about Paradise Killer. But yeah, Paradise Killer, all in all, I thought it was a cool game. I think it's definitely a game which has a specific appeal, in a sense. It's not like super niche in that sense, but I feel like if there are some things which people will definitively like or definitively not like about it, which is totally fair. I still think it does enough interesting that it's worth a play, even if you're like unsure, if you're like, oh, the genre doesn't super appeal to me necessarily. I think it's still worth a shot, at least, or at least a little bit. It is also probably, interestingly, a game which does reasonably well just watching someone else play through, and I don't mean that as like a plug for, oh, watch me play it, but because it's like most of, okay, it kind of depends. Okay, so what should I say? Paradise Killer is basically a detective game crossed with an open world exploration game, is probably how I think I'd best describe it. And if either of those two things appeal to you and the other half of it does not like put you off intensely, you'll probably like this game. I think the main meat and potatoes of the game is the investigation aspect of it, which exploration, like open world exploration, sort of ties very neatly into. But for me, it's, I say this all the time, I'm very well aware of it. I'm not super into exploration games just for the sake of exploration, like open world exploration, but if it's tied up with a mechanic I'm interested in, I'll deal with it, Alright. Witness, would I prefer it if it was just like go to the like a teleport between the places and do the thing? Yes, absolutely. But did I hate the fact that it was open world and had a lot of like secrets tied into the exploration aspect of it? No, but it did mean that I did not care at all for collecting like all the little voice recordings and little Easter eggs here and there. And yeah, so Paradise Killer is that. At its core sort of gameplay loop, the detective elements of it I think are pretty cool, actually. It's very interesting, the story. It's one which I definitely didn't actually guess from the beginning. It's one which, because it's hard to do a detective game because you can't act like a proper detective. You have a scripted path that you can follow, but it is one which I felt quite natural. Like it never, like, how should I say? It rarely, I should say, ever was like, oh, it's patronizing me by, spelling it exactly out for me. Either I already figured it out by that point, or it's just like, I straight up didn't have enough information. It's a game which really wants you to speculate on what happens, to be honest. There's a lot of because there's a lot of confusing things. People lie to you, like, all the time. So it's all about sort of like, you have to work a little bit, I guess that works in its favor because people are lying to you all the time. You kind of got to work over your own instincts and be like, okay, this is a person I trust, this person I don't trust, this person I need to find out more information about, etc, etc, which I actually think it does pretty well, at least for my own experiences. Maybe not for everyone's, but for my own experiences it worked pretty well. And the basic gameplay loop is going around like exploring, looking for clues in the open world, and then also talking to the people and sort of grilling them about clues that you find here and there. and then you sort of put the pieces together. There's also like some sort of progression, like kind of Metroidvania elements of it, where like you can't go to certain areas without like certain upgrades, which, you know, is Metroidvania-y, but it's like, okay, fine, I guess. I don't think it's like, but again, I don't think the exploration part of Paradise Killer is its strongest suit, but I understand its necessity for like being a detective game, to be able to look around like the crime scenes and be able to find things here and there. I guess my own personal take is that the world is a little bit too big. It's a little bit, it's not, I don't find it fun sweeping like an area over and over again trying to find some information. But the game is pretty helpful in that regard, right? It gives you like, one of the upgrades you can get is like a sort of divine sense, where you can find objects around you. But there's some things in here which like so some game mechanics I'm just sort of just like a bit more iffy on, because of its open nature, and you can't know the order that you discover information. Sometimes the dialogue doesn't make sense, like when you catch someone out on a lie, you can't like call them out on it properly if you've already known the information or something, or like you've really like got like some crazy evidence on someone, or they've already admitted something to you, but then they won't act like it when you choose the next dialogue option, because theoretically you were meant to do that before the other, and also because all the characters are pretty far away from each other. In a game like, for example, Tangled Tower, where if you're doing the interrogations of that sort of thing, when you find out information, you're like, oh, I want to go interrogate this person about it. In this game, you actually have to literally go to that person and then like find them and then talk to them about it, which is fine, kind of. It's still annoying, I would say, personally, because, you know, it's sort of like that puzzle element where it's like, I know what I want to do, it's just what I actually have to do takes time. And it's not particularly interesting, backtracking to that sort of thing. It's kind of fun going through and exploring for the first time, but it's not so fun being like, oh, I need to go say hi to Sam again, and then I need to go find, like, either I need to like actually walk to him, which you'll never do, or you use the in-game fast travel system, where you had to pay money, essentially, to fast travel, but there's a limited amount of money, so it's not like something you can do willy-nilly, to be honest. I didn't use it all the time. I basically used it not at all. Like, I used it very sparingly, and then towards the end of the game, when I got really bored of backtracking, I was basically using it all the time. And I ended up with, I think, with 5 coins left over. Out of, I don't know how many there are, but I had like a high of 30. I think your own experience of that might vary depending on how much you like exploring for like collectibles. You might actually find a lot more than me. But I got like, I only did it basically if I saw it within my sight. So you can sort of go back and forth without needing to fast travel much, but I do feel like the fast travel should have just been free, to be perfectly honest. The black crystals are already used as a mechanic to get more collectibles, or in one case to buy information of a character. I feel like that's an adequate use for it, you know. But these are for signpost, milepost points, like the fact that you had to pay to actually travel between them, sort of, to be fair, maybe in it I assume it's what the devs wanted, is for you to sort of walk around between places, by making fast travel like a limited resource. But they also do give you a decent amount of resources in the first place, so you still can. It's just sort of like, I don't know. I guess for me personally, you know, once I was going one, like, it's trying to encourage you to go from one place to another so you can find clues, presumably. But backtracking, so doing that the first time is fun, doing it the second time is okay. Backtracking, going back and forth 3, 4, 5 times is a nuisance, to be perfectly honest. Especially because you're not always entirely sure if someone will have something to say about new evidence you find. Sometimes you'll go to them and they'll be like, I don't even know what that is, and you'll be like, okay, well, fine. So really, I guess how I want you to play, or is how I ended up playing, is I basically accumulated a load of clues and evidence all at once, and then I went on like a mass spree to go round to people, asking them all about it, which made the conversations, as I said and mentioned earlier, feel a little bit stilted sometimes, because it was like, okay, I already know this information about you, and you're pretending that it has nothing to do with you, despite the fact I already found out from someone else, but I can't say anything in character to be like, hey, this person told me something different, which I understand why, because they simply can't make a decision tree to factor that all into account. That is a ludicrous amount of choices. But still. Yeah, so there's my criticism of the game. Nothing really to do with the plot, to be honest. It's more to do with the actual functional mechanics and the loop itself, which I think are the biggest hold-ups for me. But the rest of the game is actually, like, pretty good. Like, this game knocks it out of the park. Like, with its characters and aesthetics. It's got a synthwave aesthetic, like, very retro, very sort of theatrical. like I always say the word theatrical instead of the American term campy, which is what I want to say, but like in the UK term, that's not the term I want. Like it has different connotations. I don't know how else to describe it though. It's a sort of like, that's why I always say like exaggerated and theatrical, you know. It's like over the top in one of the best ways possible, I suppose. Like you look at the character's design, like half the people aren't wearing shirts or something. Some of their names are completely ludicrous. They make no sense. Like what the heck is Dr. Doom Jazz? What kind of name is that? But it just drips in style and personality, I suppose, because it basically super heavily leans into this sort of like synth wavy, over the top aesthetic, and it pulls it off very well. The music, honestly, fantastic. It's great. I don't know, that is probably my bias. I do quite like synthwave music or those similar sort of genres. So I'm sure that's, as I say, I'm certain that's like a bias I have towards it. But also, what was I going to say? I immediately forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, that aesthetic is really great. But the characters are really cool as well. A lot of them were super engaging. Like, they had these defined personality traits, but they reveal to you bits and pieces as they go on. Like, who was my favourite character? Obviously, Crimson Acid. Who was second? Probably the Witness. Witness to the end. I really enjoyed his character. Who is next? Maybe Sam? I'm not sure. Okay, so I guess that's kind of mild spoiler warning if you didn't want to know the characters. Apologies. So now I'm going to say all bets are off. Anything can be spoiled from this point onwards because it's hard to talk about characters without spoiling things. So yes, all bets are off. If you want to remain unspoiled about this game, please go play the game. It is good. It is a good game. If it at all sounds interesting to you, go play it. This is not a game which... This is a game where spoilers 100% matter. So it's kind of like... The story is like its main element. Okay, so I assume if you're still here, you know the game or you don't care about spoilers. Yeah, my favourite character definitely Crimson Acid because, you know, I guess part of the reason she was one of my favourites is because she was, like, not evil. Like, so many of the other characters, at the end of the day, I mean, the grand conspiracy is, like, basically murdering the entire governing body. And there's two, like, co-conspirating plots going on. Which involved a huge amount of a cast. Crimson Acid and Dr. Doom Jazz and One Last Kiss being like the three characters who basically didn't really have much to do with it. Like Doom Jazz technically did, and Crimson Acid also kind of did. But it's not like they weren't like super heavily involved or anything. The rest of the people were like, okay, yeah, let's actually like commit. It's not treason because treason's monarchy, but governmental treason, whatever that's called. Oh no, maybe treason is not monarchy. Whatever. Doesn't matter. But Crimson Acid I thought was a really fun character because she was also actually genuinely quite helpful, mainly because she would actually tell you secrets in cost of money, and also her design, fantastic. No bias whatsoever, of course, of Deers. Technically she's good, but whatever. But Witness I also found super charming because I actually thought he was quite cute. He's basically like a religious fanatic, and he was like one of the main co-conspirators. He was, you know, insanely evil thing to do. If you think about it, really, everything's kind of, like, all of them are kind of, like, evil because the entire situation is incredibly messed up in the lore of the universe, but whatever. But I thought he was kind of, like, charming in his own right with his fanaticism. And Sam I thought was just, like, a fun character, to be perfectly honest. So I guess that probably makes that my top three. But each of the characters were still entertaining in their own right. Even though Akiko was so like aggressive to you at the beginning, you can very much tell that she's just trying to get things done, and also you find out later because she just wants to, you know, not be caught for this co-conspiracy, and also wants to give like her and Marshall's, I suppose, a better existence. Stuff like that, like even the most annoying character, who I would say is probably Yuri Knight, was still very amusing, I thought. All the characters were so charming in a sense where it was like almost a shame that I was like, oh yeah, one of you at least has done like a horrible crime, and then it turns out, oh yeah, like 8 of you are in on this horrible crime, which is well, I mean, on the one aspect, horrible crime, and it definitely is a weird dichotomy of like how chummy I suppose a lot of the characters end up being, with like, oh yeah, but I also like plotted to murder the entire governing body, but also, you know, you can be like the entire situation in that game is messed up. The law is super messed up. They're basically enslaving like humanity, and then once we're done with that, they just like kill them off and then make the next island or something. Super crazy weird. But yeah, the characters I thought were super charming. It was honestly a pleasure to talk to them. I thought the designs were super cool as well. I really like the small tidbit that to say goodbye to each other, you say goodbye in relation to like, I think the birth moon or something. So each of the characters has a different birth moon as I understand it. So they say like a different thing. So Lady Love Die says a different thing to each of them. I can't remember what half of them are, but still. Is that and may you reach a moon? It's like one of them. I don't know who that's to though. Maybe that's the one that they say to us. And hanging out with them was like super fun as well, because it's like, oh, you get to see more of a character, and you get mechanically in game, you get like, oh, here are some clues and stuff which help sort of stuff to do. Help with stuff as well. Or help the investigation is what I'd say. Yeah, so what else can I say about this? I don't remember what else I was going to say about this, to be honest, but yeah, and I was trying to think what else I want to even cover about Paradise Killer. I think it's a cool concept. Oh yeah, one thing, this is a mega spoilers thing, but the fact that you can basically write your own ending, because you can do all the investigations you want, and you can basically call the shots of when you're like, hey, this is when I think the game is done for me. I think I found out enough information at this point. You can call the shots at that point. I think that's super cool, because it's like, oh yeah, I think I've done enough for investigation, especially if you don't like investigating. You can call the shots at that point, and then you can run the trial. And then even cooler, I suppose, is after the trial is done, you can go around and talk to each of the characters who still remained alive after the trial, and then you can choose whether to exile or to execute them afterwards, because it's just like, if you're the person who didn't like the investigation aspect but like talking to the characters or exploring, and it's just like, oh, I hated Yuri Knight but I could never find enough evidence against him, it's like you can just go up and execute him afterwards, or exile him afterwards. Some people, I've read people say it felt like anticlimactic, I suppose, to be like, oh, nothing matters. But the thing is, I understand that criticism, but it's more like the choice is in your hand. You can just choose at that point to be like, yes, the satisfaction comes from doing the trials itself and getting them executed within the trial within the law. This is obviously some sort of vigilante justice. It's sort of like a cheat code to get around the system, to do what you want. So yeah, okay, you could go through the entire game, find all the evidence and correctly accuse all the people who were involved, or you could just like end the game immediately and go around executing the people who you didn't like or whatever, and they would have the same outcome. But there is certainly a difference in the journey, I think, along the way, which means the significance of the difference is enough that I'm just like, I don't feel like it shouldn't feel like it's cheated, I think. What else to say about it? I think that's basically all I had to say about Paradise Killer, to be honest. I think it's a very cool concept for an investigation game as well. I also thought it was really cool that it was two conspiracies basically going on at the same time, which allows a lot of sort of like confusion and overlapping ideas and like muddying of evidence to really sort of like throw you off a scent. Yeah, and I like how you can control the trial. Like in my trial, I basically didn't tell them that Lily and Sam were involved because I liked them as characters. So I was just like, okay, I'm not going to execute you for this. I mean, I like to witness as well, but I was like, that's too heinous a crime, to be honest. So yeah, Paradise Killer, cool game. If you like either elements of it, I'd say give it a shot. If you don't, I don't know. Maybe give it a shot, or maybe watch someone play it. I don't know. That's up to you. But on that note, I'm going to round this episode off here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Aesthetic? It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons, and I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope we see each other again. But for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.